My dear friends, in a world that is constantly shouting, where opinions fly faster than arrows, and where men are more eager to be heard than to be holy, I offer you a paradoxical path to strength. Focus on yourself and stay silent. You see, modern man has become like a cracked bell, always ringing but never resonating with truth. We speak much, but we reflect little. We chase noise and flee solitude. Yet it is in the silence of the soul that God speaks, and it is in the refinement of the self that greatness is born. Before you reach for the microphone of the world, reach first for the mirror of your soul, for it is far easier to speak than to examine, far easier to project an image than to perfect a character. In our age of performance and public approval, many rush to express themselves without having first encountered themselves. We seek followers before we seek formation. But what value is there in being heard if what is heard is not yet true, not yet purified, not yet anchored in virtue? The mirror is a place of quiet honesty. It does not flatter, it does not deceive. It reflects exactly what stands before it. No more, no less. To stand before the mirror of the soul is to come face with the contradictions within us, our pride masked as humility, our ambition disguised as purpose, our impatience clothed in urgency. It is painful, yes, but it is also purifying. Before God can speak through you, He must speak to you. And before He can speak to you, you must be silent and still enough to listen. We live in a world where the microphone is passed from hand to hand without discernment. We have platforms, yet we lack prayer. We have opinions, yet we lack introspection. The result is noise without wisdom, motion without meaning. The mirror demands we slow down, that we put aside the need to be seen, and instead seek to be sanctified. Jesus spent 30 hidden years before He uttered a single public word. 30 years of silence, of obedience, of hidden labor and private growth. If the Son of God Himself did not rush to speak, why are we in such haste? The deeper the roots, the taller the tree, and the soul that is rooted in quiet self-examination can withstand the storms of public life. Speak only after you have looked deeply. Correct others only after you have allowed God to correct you. The world does not need more voices. It needs more vessels. Vessels emptied of ego, purified by prayer, and refined by the furnace of self-discipline. Then, and only then, should we take the microphone, not to be admired, but to testify to the truth we have first lived. So, before you speak, look. Before you act, examine. And before you rush to fix the world, allow God to fix the man in the mirror. A seed does not announce its growth. Beneath the surface, in the dark and quiet earth, it is undergoing transformation, unseen, uncelebrated, unpraised. Yet this hidden process is essential. It is in the silence, in the solitude, and in the obscurity that roots deepen and strength is formed. So too it is with the soul. We live in an age that glorifies visibility. If it is not seen, we think it is not real. If it is not posted, it must not be happening. But true growth, lasting, spiritual, God-ordained growth, is often invisible. It is not performed for applause, but cultivated through surrender. It is not measured in likes, but in obedience, and it does not need an audience, because the gardener sees what no man can. The saints understood this. They embraced the hidden life, not because they lacked ability, but because they valued holiness above recognition. The holiest transformations in your life will not be loud. They will not come with fanfare. They will happen in the quiet of your prayer room, in the choices you make when no one is watching, in the wrestling of your conscience in the midnight hours. That is where the heart is softened, the ego is broken, and the soul becomes fertile ground for grace. There is great danger in exposing growth too soon. A plant pulled from the soil to prove it is growing will wither. In the same way, When we rush to make our process public, we risk suffocating it with pride. The work God does in you is sacred. It deserves protection, patience, and time. Do not despise the hidden seasons of your life. They are not delays, they are preparations. God is building in you what cannot be built on stages, what cannot be tweeted or shared. He is forming character, not content. He is shaping depth, not display. And when the time is right, when the roots are strong and the foundation is firm, then, and only then, the fruit will appear. But by then, it will not matter whether the world claps, because you will have already pleased the one who called you. Do not rush to be seen, rush to be faithful. Let the work happen in private. Let your prayers shape you. Let your sacrifices mold you. Let your failures teach you. And let your victories remain between you and God until He chooses to make them known. Growth is not a show. It is a sacred journey, and every step taken in secret is seen by the Father, who rewards in His perfect time. In a time where so many strive to be noticed, to be celebrated, and to be followed, it is a radical and holy decision to choose depth over display. The world urges us to shine outwardly, but heaven whispers for us to go inward. The temptation to appear great is strong, but the call to become great in the eyes of God is far more noble and far more costly. Display is easy. It is the surface. It is the curated image, the rehearsed response, the outward appearance of confidence or virtue. Depth, however, requires digging. It requires silence, stillness, and sacrifice. It is built through trials that no one else sees and prayers that no one else hears. While display gathers crowds, depth gathers wisdom. While display seeks approval, depth seeks truth. And truth, my friend, will not always make you popular, but it will make you free. There is a hollowness to those who live only for appearance. They are like trees with glittering leaves but no roots, beautiful until the storm comes, and storms will come. Life has a way of testing what is real. When the applause fades, when the cameras are off, and when the room is empty, who are you then? What remains when there is nothing left to prove, when there is no one left to impress? That is the measure of your soul's depth. The saints did not live to be seen, they lived to be sanctified. They were not concerned with how they appeared in the eyes of men, but with how they stood before the eyes of God. Their greatness came not from the noise they made, but from the quiet, courageous yes they gave to God in hidden places. They wept in prayer, fasted in secret, forgave in silence, and the world, though it did not notice them at first, could not ignore the weight of their holiness. Depth is not glamorous. It does not crave attention. It chooses humility when pride would be easier. It chooses honesty when pretense would be more impressive. It chooses to remain unseen if being seen would compromise the truth. Depth sits with pain until it is understood, rather than covering it up for public comfort. Depth wrestles with doubt, faces conviction, and walks through the refining fire without demanding that others validate the process. You are not made for shallow living. You were made for a relationship with the Eternal One, and God does not dwell on the surface. He speaks in the deep. If you want to hear Him, if you want to truly know Him, then you must leave the noise and descend into the quiet chambers of your heart. That is where transformation happens. That is where strength is forged. That is where depth replaces display. Let others chase attention. You chase character. Let others speak constantly. You listen deeply. Let others build platforms. You build an altar. Because in the end, when all displays fade and all crowds disperse, it is your soul, rich or empty, that will remain before God. Choose to go deep, even if no one sees it. For the Father, who sees in secret, will reward you openly, not with fleeting fame, but with eternal fruit. Not every battle deserves your sword. There is a great wisdom, a heavenly maturity, in knowing when to speak and when to remain silent, when to engage and when to walk away. The world today is obsessed with being right, with proving a point, with clashing swords over every disagreement and difference. But not all conflicts are worthy of your energy. Not every accusation requires a response. Not every criticism needs to be countered, and not every opponent is your assignment. Jesus, the very embodiment of truth, stood before Pilate and answered not a word. He, who could have called down legions of angels, chose silence. He did not argue. He did not defend himself. He did not try to convince the crowd of his innocence. Why? Because he was not interested in winning arguments. He was interested in fulfilling his purpose. And when your purpose is rooted in heaven, you do not waste your sword on battles that lead nowhere. You must learn to discern between the battles that are divine and those that are distractions. Some people will misunderstand you no matter how clearly you explain. Some will oppose you, not because you are wrong, but because your light exposes their darkness. You do not owe everyone an explanation. Your peace is not up for debate. When you know who you are in God, when your conscience is clean before Him, you can walk through the fire without defending yourself to the flames. There is a false courage that looks like constant confrontation, but real strength often looks like restraint. Anyone can react. It takes discipline to respond, and sometimes the greatest response is none at all. Let your life, not your lips, be your defense. Let your fruit, not your frustration, speak for you. Silence, when chosen wisely, is not surrender. It is strategy. It is trusting that time, truth, and God will reveal what words cannot. Every time you draw your sword, you bleed a little. Your energy, your focus, your joy, these are precious and not to be spent recklessly. Some battles are traps, designed not to defeat you, but to distract you. They pull you out of purpose and into pride. They seduce you into proving something that does not need to be proven. And in the process, you may win the argument but lose your peace, your dignity, your direction. The devil is clever. He doesn't always come with horns and hatred. Sometimes he comes with debates and drama. His goal is not simply to oppose you, but to exhaust you, and nothing exhausts the soul like fighting battles that God never told you to fight. Instead of reacting to every provocation, retreat into prayer. Instead of swinging your sword at every slight, strengthen your spirit. Let God fight for you. Let your character speak for you. Let your quiet confidence be a shield against petty warfare. The greatest victories are often won by those who know when to lay down the sword, not out of fear, but out of faith. Faith that justice belongs to God. Faith that your destiny is not determined by man's opinion. Faith that what is true does not need to shout. So save your strength, guard your focus, and walk away from the noise with your integrity intact. You were not made for every battlefield. You were made for the ones that matter. And when the time comes for you to fight, let it be for truth, for righteousness, for the souls of men. Not for ego, not for image, not for applause. Hold your sword with honor, but learn the higher power of laying it down. Let silence be your sanctuary. In a world saturated with noise, opinions, updates, and constant motion, silence has become almost foreign, even uncomfortable. Yet it is in silence, not in sound, that the soul finds its true voice. Silence is not emptiness, it is fullness without chaos. It is the sacred space where heaven whispers and the clutter of the world is finally cleared from the soul's ears. We often fear silence because it strips away distractions. It leaves us alone with our thoughts, our wounds, and our conscience. But what we fail to understand is that it is precisely in that space, raw and undressed, that God begins to speak. The voice of God is rarely heard in the earthquake or the fire, but in the still, small voice. And only those who are quiet enough, still enough, and humbled enough will hear it. Our culture celebrates noise. It teaches us that the more visible, the more vocal, the more active we are, the more valuable we must be. But spiritual depth is not formed in the clamor, it is shaped in the quiet. The saints found their strength not by shouting louder, but by descending deeper. Their sanctity was not in their busyness, but in their interior stillness. In the monastery of the heart, in the solitude of prayer, they met God face to face. And from that silence came a power that no crowd could manufacture. Silence is not passive. It is not weakness or withdrawal. It is intentional. It is a rebellion against the noise that seeks to control us. It is a holy discipline. When you choose silence, you are choosing to give God the first and last word. You are choosing to listen more than you speak, to ponder before you react, to pray before you post. In silence, your soul begins to recalibrate. Your values realign. Your purpose becomes clearer. And your heart, which has been pulled in 1,000 directions, finally begins to rest. When the world misunderstands you, be silent. When you are tempted to defend yourself to those who will never see the truth, be silent. When your name is tossed about in gossip, be silent. When fear tells you to panic, and pride urges you to retaliate, be silent. Not because you have no voice, but because you trust the one whose voice created the stars. Your silence is not ignorance. It is intercession. It is surrender. It is strength. We forget that Jesus, the Word made flesh, often withdrew into solitude. He rose early to pray. He climbed mountains not to be seen, but to be alone with the Father. Before he performed miracles in the public square, he first met with God in private silence. If the Son of God needed silence to stay aligned with the Father, how much more do we? Let silence become your refuge, a place you run to, not from. Let it become your teacher. It will show you where your heart truly is. It will reveal what words have tried to cover. It will bring to the surface all that must be healed. And it will invite you, not to escape reality, but to encounter it in its truest form. Under the gaze of God, free from performance, free from comparison, free from noise. In a world that demands your reaction, let silence be your response. In a time when everyone is speaking, let your quiet soul draw nearer to the one who listens. And in the sanctuary of that silence, may you discover that God has not been distant. He has simply been waiting for the world to grow quiet enough for you to hear him. Let silence be where you are refined. Let it be your anchor. Let it be your sanctuary. For in that sacred stillness, God will not only speak, you will finally begin to hear. So I say to you today, withdraw from the noise and return to yourself. Cultivate a hidden life with God. Let your greatness be forged in the silence no one sees. And when the time comes for your voice to speak, it will be as anointed as the prophets, and as clear as the trumpet on the mountain. May you focus on yourself not out of selfishness, but for sanctity, and may you stay silent, not to escape the world, but to transform it from within. God love you.